Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I will be discussing some reasons why the all-new C8 Z06 is constantly being tested alongside the Porsche 911 GT2 RS and the Ferrari 458 Italia. Many people initially said that the Z06 was going to house a twin-turbo setup, so it would make sense to compare it to the 700 horsepower twin-turbo Porsche. However, as more and more information trickles through, it looks like the Z06 will in fact be naturally aspirated. Armed with this information, we've sat down and had a good think about why they would be testing against these two specific cars, and I think we've stumbled on some pretty clear reasons. Before I hop into them, let me just mention that if you have not yet subscribed, then definitely go ahead and do that, as it really helps out our channel. We always do appreciate your support. Alright, back to the video. Let's first discuss the Z06 comparison to the 458 Italia. So anybody who's a real gearhead immediately knows that the 458 is now considered an older Ferrari, as it's already been replaced by the 488. So it's definitely a bit curious as to why they would bring out a car produced from 2010 to 2015. Well, like I've said before, it wouldn't make sense to compare it to the 488 because the power plant is a 3.9 liter twin turbo. So obviously if the Z06 is a naturally aspirated 5.5 liter flat plane crank, which is from the C8R, then wouldn't they want something that has a similar engine? And the 458 is probably the closest thing if you look at the entire exotic car market. Lamborghinis are strictly V10s and V12s, McLarens are all V8 twin turbos, and Porsches are all flat 6 engines, well, with turbos, with the exception of the GT3 and the GT2 RS. So the Ferrari really is an obvious choice here. And don't worry, I'll get into the Porsche in a moment, I just want to get through this thought process. So the Ferrari then. First of all, let's talk about the sound. When this car revs all the way to its limit, it sounds so incredible, especially when the baffles fully open up. My personal belief is that they are using it strictly to refine the exhaust and the engine sound of the C8 Z06. I mean, they might also be monitoring engine durability and potential rev limits. It might seem random, but I mention the rev limits because the 458 revs at a whopping 9,000 RPM. By contrast, we know that the C8 Stingray revs quite low at 6,500 RPM. Yes, I know it's a pushrod engine and it makes so much power and torque down low, but that's not something we're talking about right now. So let's go back to the C8R. So I've looked all over the web, I haven't been able to find any literature on the RPM for the C8R, but after listening to some clips and looking through some forums, I would not be too shocked if its redline was anywhere near 7,500 to 9,000 RPM. So it seems like if that's going to be where they're going, then that's an easy correlation right there. It's a mid-engine, it's got a flat plane crank, and the redline is very similar, if not the same. Now, if we smoothly segue to the Porsche, it seems that it's an incredibly odd pairing with the new Z06. What could they possibly be testing between these two, especially if the Ferrari already seems so perfect? Well, it was leaked about a week ago that the Z06 will have an interesting wheel and tire setup. Whereas the Corvette C8 Stingray has a 245 width tire with a 19-inch rim in the front and a 305 tire in the rear with a 20-inch rim. The Porsche 911 GT2 RS by comparison has a 265 by 20 inch in the front and a 325 by 21 inch in the rear. And if you don't know, from a recent spy shot, the C8 Z06 looks like it's going to have a 275 by 20 in the front and a 345 by 21 in the rear, which is very interesting, but it's also very similar to the GT2 RS. So it seems like the diameter of the rims and the width of the tires are going to be very similar, so the setup might be pretty much identical. However, let's look more closely at the tires. The Porsche has the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, which are an ultra high performance tire. And in the same spy shots that I've mentioned before, the Z06 looks like it's running the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs, which is pretty much the highest performance tire you can go with. And what you may not know is that the Cup 2Rs were initially developed for the Porsche GT3 RS and the GT2 RS, which would help to explain why it's included in their convoy. Now, I may be reaching a little bit too far with these next points, but I think it makes sense. I mean, at least in my head. So if you haven't heard by now, it really looks like the Z06 will have the optional carbon fiber rims. And if you look very closely, they are covered by a disc, but if you look in between where the bolt pattern is, you can kind of distinctly make out a carbon fiber weave, which is most likely going to be an optional on the Z06. So if we compare to the Porsche, in case you didn't know, that one has optional magnesium rims, which kind of indicates to me that they're comparing the two and really trying to work out what is better. Another point is that the GT2 RS also has carbon ceramic brakes, and I would bet that the Z06 will also have those as an option. So overall, I think it's fair to conclude that the Porsche is being used to benchmark the handling and traction aspect. Definitely not the same, but there are many similarities that I have already mentioned. So I guess my grand conclusion here is that the Ferrari has a similar engine, so they're clearly comparing the power plants. Maybe they're looking at some luxury aspect as well, but I'll leave that out for the time being. Whereas the Porsche, on the other hand, is clearly being used in terms of handling and driving dynamics. So testing with these two vehicles that have such a hefty price tag, but have been engineered so beautifully, GM is definitely going to come out with something epic. So that's my analysis on why GM is testing this new Z06 with the 911 GT2 RS and the 458. I'm pretty sure I've done a decent job of researching and comparing all the specifications, but if you think that I've missed something, or even if you think what I've said makes sense, please share with me in the comments below. We always love hearing from you guys as it gives us a new perspective. And if you obviously haven't already, we would appreciate a thumbs up as well. So that concludes my in-depth comparison. I hope you've all enjoyed, and as always, thank you for watching. My name is Orest, we are Daily Downshift, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.